Welcome, everyone. I'm Jonathan Fishman. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for LeanLaw, and I welcome you all today to our first in a series of 3 webinars. This is Lauren and my 7th webinar together, so we've done 2 other prior webinars, and this is a series, and we also have our chat host. I think that's what we're officially titling Steve Fogelman, Lauren's cohort, and he will be in the chat helping to facilitate conversation and answer any questions there. So I'm very excited. Thank you, Steve, for joining us. Thank you, Lauren, for your collaboration. So today's webinar is part of this 3-part series, which is increasing profitability with working with law firms. And today's, I want to get the proper title for today's webinar, which is Earn More with Your Cleanup Projects, the secret to eliminate cleanup surprises. And I'm really thrilled to talk about this topic. I'm not an accountant, I'm not a bookkeeper, but in my capacity of LeanLaw, we're onboarding many firms working closely with bookkeepers and accounting, and I have a firsthand knowledge of the messes that people inherit in onboarding new clients. So I think it's going to be a very lively and productive conversation. I want to start before we get into today's topic and stage it by just announcing a few things. I'm going to share some chats of some upcoming events at LeanLaw, just so everyone has access to it. First, this is the first of a 3-part webinar series with Lauren. If you like today's, there will be 2 others that support the same kind of conversations. I'm going to send out the links to the information. Did that go? And the next one is how to create irresistible packages, which Lauren is an absolute expert on. So today is about onboarding, then we'll shift into packages, and then there's a third, which Lauren, I can look it up. Do you know what the third one is off the top of your head?
Not at all.
Oh, okay, so I'll look it up real quick and get back to you. The other thing I want to talk about is that LeanLaw will also have what we call a LeanLaw Accounting Pro Meetup. LeanLaw Accounting Pros are a community that we're forming of accounting professionals that want to service law firms that work with QuickBooks Online, and of course have an interest in LeanLaw. That community has a monthly meetup. We had one in July, which I'll send a link to it, which I had 2 guest speakers, Linda Artesani and Sarah Prevost, and we talked about onboarding. So kind of akin to the same conversation, how to onboard clients. There was a specificity to LeanLaw. This August meetup will be a part 2 of that conversation where we're going to get into the minutia of data migration as a function of onboarding. So these are somewhat tactical conversations about how to manage both the onboarding of a law firm onto a QuickBooks Online environment, specifically LeanLaw, but also talking about some of the best practices with data. So here is the link to those activities, including a recording link from last month. And lastly, if you're interested in LeanLaw, and then I'll get my announcements out of the way, LeanLaw offers monthly or bi-monthly product tours. So in a group forum, we get together and we introduce LeanLaw and go through a product tour of the product. We're having one of those on the 11th and again on the 25th and 11 o'clock Mountain Standard, and here's a link to that. So those are just some activities to acquaint yourself with our community of LeanLaw and some things that you may want to participate. So let's get to today's topic. And Lauren, I want to first and foremost have you begin to sort of set the stage. So in a kind of 2-part question, please educate the group as to who you are. So please tell me, a little bit about the group, and or tell the group a little bit about yourself. And then if you could, in the second half of that, just set up the dialogue for today so they have some context as to what to expect.
Excellent, thank you. Basically, I am a sports psychologist turned business coach. However, what I have found along my journey is my passion is helping accounting professionals be able to double their income working half the time. I focus on strategic pricing as well as other things to really help turn your business into your personal ATM machine, because I think that accounting professionals work really, really hard and deserve to enjoy the rewards as opposed to sacrifice their life in order to serve their clients. So I want to turn that around and really have your business support your lifestyle and turn your business into your personal ATM machine, because there's many places where you're leaving money on the table, and we want to be able to find those and fix them. As far as today, this is right out of my online course, Diagnose Your Cleanup to Maximize Your Profits. What I'm digging into today with Jonathan is module 1, where we're going to go ahead and cover your profitable 3-step formula. When you're first thinking about your cleanup projects, someone is coming to you, you're starting to price it. What typically happens in the pricing part is you're thinking about the project from your point of view. You're thinking about your time, about the complexity. That influences how you're charging for the project. When you're doing it that way, you're actually leaving money on the table. I've seen this over and over again with my clients, and I share several clients with LeanLaw. Those clients have been able to charge anywhere from 2 to 5 times more for their cleanup projects than when they were typically approaching it before we started working together. With the initial consult that you're doing with someone when they come into you with a cleanup project, you want to start to discover why they're reaching out to you right now. This means that you're going to be stepping into their shoes. You probably already know the answer, that it's usually one of 3 different reasons. Either they've started a new entity, they need to replace someone who's either retiring, or they're just not very competent. Or the third option is that maybe they were doing it in-house, they're ready to outsource it. Those are usually the things that cause them to start reaching out to you about doing this and taking on their bookkeeping. Now, that's one part of what you want to find out during this initial consult. The second thing is you want to start to look into what are their needs. It might be that they're really in the dark because their books aren't accurate. When that's happening, it limits their ability to make strategic decisions. Another reason is that there's inefficiencies. Their system might be slow, outdated. Need I say more?
Yeah, exactly.
Or the one last piece, Jonathan, I want to wrap up with this, is that maybe they need better reporting, because when they don't have accuracy about their financials, it might affect their morale. It might maybe affect partner distributions or IOTA compliance. When that happens and you're able to correct it for them, you actually are raising their profitability. You might also be contributing to employee retention. Those are some of the things you really want to think about when someone's first coming to work with you. Is why are they coming to work with you, and what are the needs, not just the immediate ones, but actually the bigger picture ones. And those things make your job so much more profitable if you start to scope that out during the first meeting.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna, we're gonna shift gears, and I have a poll here real quick, so I wanna pause for a second, but I wanna add one little note that we've seen from the LeanLaw side, is that just in general, there's this shift in law firms, so we pay close attention to law firms, where boomers are aging out and retiring, and now Gen X and Gen Y are taking leadership, and millennials are sort of the driving force of law firm productivity. And from the millennial mindset, they expect modernization, they expect cloud applications, and most importantly, they expect data transparency. And what Lauren alluded to is that many of the systems that they're working on today are very antiquated. They're on-premise, and it's exasperated by COVID. But the idea is that this younger generation is coming up and saying, "You're kidding me! I have to wait for this data." And in every other facet of their life, data is always live and at their fingertips, and now they're waiting for it months after. So that's a process improvement, but it's one of the catalysts for change. So I'm going to launch a poll real quick. We didn't do this before, so just to get a little engagement. So I'm just curious in the group if you've ever attended a webinar by Lauren. And I have 2 polls. I'm just going to do this very quickly, just 20 seconds, or we're going to hit the 75% threshold. Let's see what comes first. Oh, we broached 85%. So everyone's polling, and the majority are seeing Lauren for the first time. 12% have attended before, 88% hadn't. And then I have another one, which is, do you currently work with law-focused clients? So we're kind of curious about the topology of the group in terms of the client mix. So I just opened that. If everyone can give a quick vote, and I see a little bit of a focus. So what we're seeing in the results there, I'll just have this poll open just for a few more seconds. So in this poll, 75% have a mix of clients, with law being some of it. 20% of you want to niche into law, and 5%, which is one person, is actually focused entirely on law. Okay, I just wanted to check that out. So Lauren, the audience is a bit new to us, and there's a lot of law-focused folks here, but there's also people who want to niche into law. So let's get into the heart of it, and ask this question. So, you know, when you look at it's such a common pain point for bookkeepers, and they learn this firsthand, that cleanup nightmares, they have these cleanup nightmares and they talk about it all the time. Why? What's the why? Why does this happen? Why do they fall into this sort of routine of having these clumsy introductions to these clients?
Mm-hmm. The nightmares can be avoided. Let's just start with that. A lot of times your consultation process offers clues about your self-worth and your mindset. Because of that, if we're talking about attorneys, they're smart. They're trained to pick up on these things that you might not even realize that you're giving out as far as messages about yourself as well as your process. The thing to consider is that you might be rushing through the consultation process because it's uncomfortable to you. Because of that, you don't want to be in it too long. You just want to get started. You love doing the work and you are eager to get started. But if you get started too soon, then you avoid getting some information that might have helped you scope out the project better. The other thing is that when you're scoping out the project too soon, you're not getting as much information as you need. It's like a doctor going into surgery before they did all the lab work and exams. It creates a lot of problems that could have been preventable. The other thing is you might be relying too much on your client's self-report, because let's just face it, 9 times out of 10, they underestimate the mess, and they typically tell you it's basic or it's simple. Well, what I have found is that when they're using those two words, it's like code words for, I want this to be done as cheaply as possible. When you're pretty much relying on their self-reports, you might find more transactions and entities than expected. Maybe they didn't separate their personal from their business expenses, or they forgot to mention their PayPal account or line of credit. All those things can be avoided when we start to slow down the onboarding process.
Yeah, and I think also what I've seen, because in my vantage point from LeanLaw, I'm selling into these law firms, and many times, to your point up front, there's 3 reasons that they're making change. I think sometimes there's also an embarrassment factor. These are upmarket individuals, and they almost have a sense of shame as to how messy their books are, and there's this trust that's not quite there. So they're not necessarily being forthcoming or completely revealing about what's happening. And I have some other notes about things, and I don't want to put the cart before the horse, but I also think that on the accounting side, what I've seen, because I interact a lot and work collaboratively with accounting folks as we do this, is that there's a lack of process improvement, in that every time we do this, we get better at how we do this. So I want to shift the gears a little bit and talk a little bit about pricing mistakes. So you've got this very distilled sort of mindset. What are the 5 most common pricing mistakes that people make as they approach these sort of cleanup and onboarding projects?
hmm Well, first of all, I think that how you price your services is a reflection of your self-worth. One of the things I wanted to circle back also with what you brought up is on the bookkeeper side, there might be intimidation because you don't have the same educational credentials as an attorney does. I want to just bring that to the table a little bit also because it does influence your process as well as your prices. The first mistake is that you're not doing a diagnostic prior to the cleanup, or you're doing the diagnostic for free. When you do the diagnostic for free, you are leaving money on the table, which we'll go into in a couple of questions further along. The other thing is that when you are pricing your cleanup projects, you might be charging too little because you lack a pricing formula. That's something right out of module 3 of my cleanup project course that I have. And then it might be that number 3 is you do the cleanup project, but you don't enroll them as an ongoing client. I've seen a lot of bookkeepers, they just do the cleanup and then they hand the books back. Now that might bring some cash in immediately. However, it fails to build your practice. The fourth thing is someone's coming to you, they need it done quickly. Think about when COVID first happened, everything was shutting down. There were all these loans being offered by the government. People needed to get their books up to speed quickly. However, a lot of times you don't charge for speed when there's urgency, but people will pay for speed. That's one of the places where you might be leaving money on the table. And then the last one is payment terms. I've seen a lot of bookkeepers where they maybe charge a retainer up front, then they get the rest right before they hand the books back over. However, if you're giving any types of terms on how to pay you for the project, that's something where you can actually charge a higher fee than if they pay you in full up front, which is one of the things that I do teach my clients how to do. And I'm going to just add in one more bonus mistake, because as you mentioned, our next webinar is packages. Well, when someone's coming to you to do a cleanup project, I would say the majority of accounting professionals only offer one pricing object for those cleanup projects. What if you were able to offer 3 different options on how to move forward with you? Then you're giving them options about which one might be best for them as opposed to just this one, or you move on. So those are some of the pricing mistakes.
I want to go, you went back, and I kind of want to go back to this point, and I'm going to do a poll right after this. So you said there's this, putting the pricing mistakes in a bucket just for a second, you said there's this inequality between the sort of pedigree or the upmarket sophistication of an attorney and the bookkeeper. And there's this sort of inequality and maybe a bit of apprehension. What are some of the tactics that people can use from your mindset to overcome that and sort of, overcome that challenge and have the law firm, the attorney, whomever, the purchaser, see them as an equal? How do they deal with that?
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't think it's about having the attorney see you as an equal. It's about you seeing yourself as an equal. That is really where the work needs to be done, is looking at where maybe you feel that you're not on equal footing or just as much of a professional as an attorney is. Because I believe that success comes from the inside out, and that part of when you're moving forward in this direction, you have to connect with your personal value. What I would say is come up with a list of all the benefits your best clients receive because they work with you, because you helped them, and become really keenly aware of the value that you bring to the table. Once you start to have that awareness, you're able to gradually start to own it. Then you're going to be coming to the table speaking to attorneys with more confidence, feeling that you're on equal footing because you have you solve a problem that they have and they need you.
Yeah, and I think what's important there is that I think too many times accounting professionals focus too much on what they do versus the value of what they do. And so, I do AR, we see this on their websites all the time. I do AR, AP, this. And when someone comes into it, I always tease them and saying that's like going to a car dealership and saying, we sell cars with tires. Like, of course you do. Of course the cars have tires. What's the value what's the value back to the end user? And I think that sometimes that gets lost in the communication, and it then gets into a very utilitarian, commoditized interaction.
Right. I agree with you. One of the things that I teach my clients is your highest value is what you know, not what you do. Your attorneys are hiring you because of what you know. When you lead with that, then you are on equal footing. You are seen as a professional.
Yeah, that is such a profound thing. It's what you know, not what you do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm going to put a quick poll up that we did. So this one, if I can get it to launch. Thinking of your past year, do you feel like your client onboarding is a profit area or a loss leader for your business? So are you earning money or are you losing money? And we'll see. Got some people voting. Wow. Oh my goodness. This is a really interesting, okay, just a few more seconds. I'm saying wow because I get to see the numbers. I'm going to keep this out and just try to get the majority of the people in. So super duper close. 47% of the group feel that it's an area of profit. 53% feel it's an area of loss. So I think that's very telling because ultimately we want to move that 53% into an area of profit. So it leads me to a question. Sorry, I'm going off script a little bit here, Lauren, but why do you think by nature that more than half of these people are losing money, but yet the other half are earning money? Like, from your interactions with all of these people that you've done, what do you think is the behavior behind that? Is it just they haven't learned how to package it? And we're going to talk about that. Just a general reaction to that number. I'd be curious to hear that.
I believe the bottom line is that enrolling someone into doing this is sales. People don't like the sales part. They don't see themselves as salespeople, which I totally get. That's part of where you want to learn how to have a value conversation, leading with the value and understanding what the client's value is, as opposed to looking at it from your perspective. Once again, you want to step into their shoes. Because that if you're uncomfortable with talking about what you do, if you're uncomfortable with focusing on trying to sell someone into working with you or talking about the money part, then this is going to be a loss leader. The other side is that the bookkeepers here already see that it's profitable. It can be even more profitable. I just want to let you know that being able to go through this process with your cleanup projects literally turns your business into your personal ATM machine. It is a money maker, and I want to really help you make as much money and build your bank account as much as possible.
So it seems like when you talked about packages could be a real solution to kind of mitigate the uncomfortableness of money. So let's get back into our conversation. I just could not react to that statistic because I was flabbergasted that it was half. So so the reality is that you've come into this onboard and you have the best intentions to price it right. We often make mistakes. I just had a LeanLaw. So LeanLaw charges a little bit for onboarding the clients, and I just had this happen where I didn't ask the client specifically enough how they invoice. And what I learned was instead of training one person to invoice in a law firm, all 30 lawyers in the law firm produce their own invoices. So all of a sudden, I'm like, wait a second, I now have a totally different onboarding experience because I made the goof in not asking the question. So when mistakes happen, Lauren, what are the tactics? What happens? What are some of the options available to these folks to manage that moment that, yikes, I made a mistake?
Well, first of all, mistakes will happen. Even if you're a perfectionist, it will happen. It's unfortunate. It's part of the learning curve. And when you make mistakes with your onboarding process, it costs you frustration, time, as well as money. Now, I believe that you're going to approach this in one or two ways. Either you're going to decide to speak to your client and go back to them about the fact that your original quote wasn't accurate. It's going to actually be more costly than what you originally told them, which is not a great way to start off a new client relationship.
Exactly.
Or you're going to go ahead and just eat it. You'll realize it's a lot more complex. You don't like talking about the money thing. It feels uncomfortable, intimidating. You don't like conflict because that you just decide to go ahead with the project and eat it as far as how much additional time it's going to take, which means that it lowers your profit margin on the job. But those are really the two basic options. Is either you go back and you talk to your new client, or you just go ahead and absorb the cost. The bottom line, it's a costly learning curve. And if you're going to make a mistake, at least learn from it and put a process in place to avoid being in that same situation the next time around.
So how detrimental have you, from your coaching experience, and I guess maybe it's a situation basis, but if they go back to the client and now say, hey, we need to do more money, are there any specific tactics there in terms of framing that conversation? Or is there a way to, is there a best practice there? In my example, I did the latter. I ate it, right? I didn't want to go back to the client. It was a big enough opportunity. We think about a 7-year relationship, you know, a few little dollars here or there, we ate it. That was our decision there, and learned from it, and now put process improvement in place. That question is now always asked in a discovery call. So I guess if I want to just drill down a little bit and say, are there any best practices that you can offer in terms of maybe packaging that, hey, I need more money dialogue in a way that's friendlier to the client?
Well, I think the first thing is that it's proof that maybe your diagnostic is lacking and can be improved upon. Let's just go there. There's room for improvement, but it all goes down to your work agreement. If you have a work agreement that spells out what you are going to do and what you're not going to do, and that if you have found additional things that weren't uncovered in the original agreement, you can then go back to them with this saying, this was out of scope. I found this, I wasn't aware of it, or it wasn't told to me, and we need to go ahead and adjust the project. That is really the best way to be able to approach this. The other thing is that if you do decide to have this conversation, you want to do it focusing on the details and leave the emotion out of it. If you are uncomfortable, if it is something that you don't feel confident about, then you might end up talking too much or giving too many justifications, which actually minimize your expertise and your confidence going into the conversation. So I would say have a really tight work agreement. And if you're going to have this conversation, focus on the details. Don't make it a longer conversation where you're giving too many explanations. Just state the facts and tell them what the next steps are to move forward.
So that leads us nicely into the next question I have for you, which is, you know, how do folks completely, how does this community put themselves in a position where they mitigate having to have that conversation or that decision? Do I eat it or do I go back to the client?
The first thing is to realize the value of your knowledge. As we touched on earlier, your highest value is what you know, not what you do. That is the very first thing. The other part is remember to step into your client's shoes to understand their current wants, needs, and desires. As you want to really solve this problem, first, it's a mindset thing. You have to own your value. If your low confidence is affecting your process, then that is something that is workable, and there's ways to be able to correct that to keep you from leaving money on the table. The second thing is going into a paid diagnostic. That is the very second thing, is if you're going to do a diagnostic, get paid for it.
So hold on. Yeah. What's a paid diagnostic? I just want to make sure everyone knows, before you get into that point, I want to make sure everyone understands what you mean by a paid diagnostic.
What we were talking about yesterday, Jonathan, from my approach, is when you are having a new client come to you, you want to take the same stance as if you were taking your car to your auto mechanic. When you take your car into your auto mechanic, you are going to tell them about the knocking in the engine. Well, the very first thing that your auto mechanic is going to do is they're going to go ahead and lift up the hood, get their head under the hood, maybe put on some clamps to do a computerized diagnostic. They're not doing any work. They're not fixing it. They are just scoping out what's going on that's causing the knocking in your engine. After they've done that, then they come to you. They give you a long laundry list of everything that's wrong with your car. It's overwhelming, but they go through everything and the cost of everything. Then they go ahead and they get your agreement before doing the work. They are not picking up a tool to fix anything until they get your consent. Once they get your consent, they do the job. Then they're trying to roll you into a maintenance program. That is the exact outline that you want to put in place in your practice, is first doing a diagnostic. However, your diagnostic can be paid. They can pay you for it because it's a standalone product where either they can then have you do the work for them, they can take it in-house, they can do it themselves. And that is something where you start getting money for something that before you were giving away for free or didn't know how to charge for.
And I think I'm going to interrupt you just for a second, because I think this is a really important point. You talked about your value. Mm-hmm. You talked about, recognizing that. You talked about communicating that value. So when you think about that diagnostic, that translates right into the value of that diagnostic, such that it's paid. Now you can, there's that, and I think it's really important that that's communicated. And when it's communicated, if you have a clear process, a clear value, and articulate that, the recipient is willing to pay for it, because that product, that package can sit on its own, mm-hmm. and they can walk away and learn from that and, tactically develop next steps, whether that's with you or, as you said, without. So I just really wanted to emphasize that point, because I think it's really important.
And let me give you an example of how it comes into play. When I was first working with Susan, she came to me because someone wanted to hire her for a cleanup project. She knew that she undervalues them for a variety of reasons, and that she goes through the process too quickly, that she was leaving a lot of money on the table because she was doing some work for free. What we did is we plugged in my diagnostic review system. Basically, the very first thing that she did is she charged for the diagnostic. They paid her $800 just for the diagnostic, just to scope out the laundry list of everything that needed to be corrected in their books. That was $800 that she normally would have done for free. And the next thing is that after that, we talked about how to price the cleanup project before she met with them about what she needed to do to really get their books up to speed. Well, if Susan would have just estimated her time based on her hourly rate, she would have done the cleanup project for $1,500. We spoke about it, looking at it from the client's point of view of what they valued and how this was going to help them, how this was going to plug up some money leaks, make their business more profitable. Because of looking at it from their point of view and what was important to them, she actually proposed $7,900 for the job. They said yes, and they went ahead and paid her upfront to do the cleanup project. That means that not only did she make the $7,900 for the job instead of $1,500, but she also made the additional $800 for the review that she normally would have done for free. Because of that, she made at least 4 times more on doing the same work. She didn't do any more work. She just scoped it out differently and approached it differently, focusing on the client value instead of looking at it from how much time it was going to take her.
And this is what we've learned. I want to bring back a few things you said. First, why is that lawyer or that law firm having this conversation? they're starting something up, they're outsourcing, or something's broken. They're in a position where they're willing to invest money because they're coming from a place that needs change. The second thing is that in that moment, lawyers have and I know this because I interact with them, they have a reputation as if they're a bit frugal, and some are. But in most instances, the amount of money that we're talking about for a general law practice isn't huge to them, and it's a once every so often kind of expense. So they say in their head, hey, we'll just pay it. I see this all the time in my sales process because they've accepted change. I need to make a change. And then the third thing I want to make a note of in understanding the lawyer's perspective is that they would never do it any way differently. A lawyer would never take on a client and say, let me go do this diagnostic work for free so that I can come back and frame the product. And I mean, they'll meet with you for an hour or 45 minutes to frame the conversation a bit, but then they start charging their rate. So they don't expect work to be done for free in their business. Why should they expect you to do it? Okay, I just wanted to make those points because that's very specific to the lens that I see in my law world. So Lauren, when talking about bookkeepers and you're suggesting, I want to get into the sort of this now, how do they approach it? You're suggesting that the bookkeepers slow down and do this review before they get back to work. So help the audience understand some of the mistakes to avoid, as they start to do this. Like what are the common mistakes so that they can begin to move into this? I mean, some of you in the group are already doing this successfully, but I'm sure there's some process improvement that Lauren can bring into. So let's speak to that, Lauren.
Sure. The main thing to look at is with the way that your accounting practice and bookkeeping practice is set up, either you are running your business or your business runs you. It's going to be one of those two things. I will let you know that when you lack system,
sorry to laugh, but
it's
I totally
exhausting.
know I've experienced that. Please continue. I'm sorry to disrupt.
Well, I think the thing that I'm talking to also is that the majority of people that go into accounting is they're service oriented. They want to make a difference for their clients. And because of that, you try to adapt to their processes instead of really taking charge, owning your expertise, knowing that this is where you are the authority and having them adapt to your process. When you have them adapt to your process, you're a lot more efficient as well as effective. And it actually increases your profitability because you can do things faster because you're running through a same system over and over and over again. But some of the mistakes that I look at and actually want to correct because then it improves your efficiency as well as your profitability is that first, you might be leaving money on the table because you're not doing a paid diagnostic. Let's just have you start to charge for the diagnostic review. As we were saying, it's a standalone service. The rate that you want to charge for a diagnostic review, and I would love to see in the chat, Steve, what people think that they can charge for a diagnostic review.
Well, we actually had a comment from Aaron, and he's asking, I charged $2,500 for QuickBooks Online cleanup, 7 months of reconciliations, conversion to QBO payroll, fixing a botched LeanLaw conversion. It ended up being 4 times more hours than I originally thought.
Yep.
Am I drastically undervaluing this or am I close?
You are drastically undervaluing it, Aaron. We can fix that.
Who did the botch? I need Aaron on a side note. I want to know what this botch was.
You know what? Just the fact that you have that awareness, Aaron, is the first step. That you did the best you could with the information you had at the time, and there's rooms for improvement in order to make the cleanups more profitable. Anyway, my clients charge between $500 to $1,500 for just the diagnostic review. And you might think it just takes an hour. In the beginning, it's probably going to take 3 times more than that as you systemize the process. So that's true with anything. As you start out, you're slower, but it gets faster as you do it over and over again. But this is going to create a additional stream of revenue for you without doing any additional work. And the second thing is that you want to recognize that when you are doing the engagement for the review, all you're doing is reviewing and assessing. Hold yourself back from the desire to want to tweak something here that's wrong and can be easily fixed, or to change something there. Don't do any work. You don't pick up your tools and fix things yet. All you're doing is reviewing and assessing. Remember, it's like an auto mechanic. All you're doing is getting under the hood and coming up with your long list of everything that will help get them up to speed. The third thing is you don't know how to price your work. One of the things that I teach in my cleanup profitability program is I give you a pricing formula to be able to charge for this. That way you never leave money on the table again. You stop undercharging. But one of the things that happens is now that you've done this review, you've looked around, you know their cash flow, and then you start to feel sorry for them. Once you start to feel sorry for them and let those emotions affect your rates, well, then you end up lowering your price for the project. This is where you need a pricing formula that you can lean on for your cleanup jobs, is you don't let your emotions or your empathy for them get in the way of your pricing. The fourth step is that you might not be getting paid before you do the work. I want to show you how to get paid up front, and if you want to give them terms, how you can actually be paid more for terms than if they're paying you in full. But there are a high percentage of clients that are willing to pay you in full before you start the work if you set this up properly. Basically, when you get paid up front, you then solve the chasing money problem, because that's a headache right there. And your highest value is actually before you do the work. And once the work is done, it resolves a particular need that they have, and your value has actually lowered once you've completed the work. That's why you want to get paid up front. And the fifth one is the diagnostic review is a low risk engagement for you as well as with your clients. It's a way for them to get started with you and build trust. Maybe they came from a bookkeeper that really messed things up, so now they're gun shy. This is a low risk way of getting started and to see if they can trust you before moving on to the next thing. The other part for you is it is a way to be able to cherry pick your client, because I bet that you have a certain percentage of PETA clients, headache clients, non-ideal clients that don't respond quickly. They don't give you what they need. They just ghost you. Well, those clients just add frustration. They waste your time. They are costly. They lower your profits instead of build your profits up. And the way to fix this is by doing a review. If you find that there's any red flags about a client, you don't have to go into the next step of the cleanup project. You can just give them the review. It's a standalone product, and you bless them and let them move on. You just solve the headache client problem right there, because you don't have to put them into do the cleanup project if they're a headache client. Anyway, those are some of the things. I'm just going to say them real quickly again, Jonathan, is start to charge for the diagnostic. My clients charge between $500 to $1,500 for the review. The sole purpose of this engagement is just to get them into a review and an assessment. You are not doing any fixing. Hold yourself back. You need a pricing formula to know how to price for the cleanup project. This avoids undercharging. You want to get paid before you do the work, because that's when your work has its highest value and it solves the chasing money problem. And then finally, the diagnostic review is a low risk engagement. It lets them build trust with you if they've been burned before by a previous bookkeeper, and it lets you decide whether this is someone you actually want to work with, or if this is a PETA client that you just want to bless and then send on their way after you've done the review.
Okay, so you segued into a poll that I want to do. So I'm going to launch this poll, and it's what percentage of your clients are headache clients? And be honest here, it's all anonymous. So we won't see anything what they are. Oh, come on. You love all your clients. So two people have said they love all their clients. I don't know how that ever is perfect, the utopic. Okay.
Well, let's put it this way, Jonathan, as they're doing it. Some people, you love all your clients. Some of them, you love them when they walk in the door. Some of them, you love them when they walk out the door.
So the vast majority said that less than 25%, which is probably a healthy number.
That's great.
There certainly were, that was 71%. 14% said up to 50. A very small percentage were more than 50%, and a very small percentage were all of them. So the truth is that, you know, the majority of you, less than 25%, are what you call headache clients. And I think I want to reinforce one thing that Lauren said earlier. I'm going to keep hitting this point because I think it's really important. When you're trying to sell that standalone diagnostic product, and then of course a higher priced cleanup project, it goes back to you understanding your value and being able to communicate that value and to be able to communicate the process at which you're bringing people through. I think it's human nature that if they understand the value of what they're buying and they can see the roadmap of where they're going, they're much more apt to buy into your system. I think it's very difficult to say if you're not crystal clear about what it is that you're doing. Aaron said, I do this, I do this, I do this for $2,500. And that was very specific as to what's happening. I'm not sure how that is communicated to the client in terms of value. So I think it's really important to reinforce that point about not what you do per se, although a process is important to articulate, but what's the value back to that law firm. And remember, that law firm's coming from a place of change. They're trying to fix something. They're trying to create it, they're trying to outsource it, or they're trying to fix it. So their value is not just, their value is to get from here to there and do so in a way that they think they're going to have a better outcome. And that also, as she said, it reinforces the whole processes that you can put in place to make a long-term relationship far more efficient for you and for the law firm, which maybe you're going to mention this, so I'll just say it really briefly, which kind of rises you out of the mechanical aspects of bookkeeping and moves you into that trusted advisor role. Okay, Lauren, so I want to kind of pull things together now, and I wanted you to go back and talk a little bit about a highly profitable onboarding system. And what does that look like? You talked about some of the things, some of the components, but what does that all look like in terms of the finished product?
Well, what I see is as you're doing the cleanup, you're able to really assess what these clients need from you to continue moving forward. You want to then, once the cleanup is done, enroll them into working with you on a monthly basis, into having them be regular monthly clients. With this, what you want to look at is really offering them packages, which is what our next webinar is about. But with the packages, what's happening is once you do the cleanup job, you're going to enroll them into a monthly recurring package. What you want to do is you want to price that package for value from your client's perspective as opposed to your time. That's why I believe that you want to start separating your fees from time, because your hourly rate typically leaves money on the table.
Hold on. I want you to go back and, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you said something super important. Go back and restate what you just said. You want to change the idea from the value of the packages to the time. I just want you to say that again, because I want this audience to hear it loud and clear, because I think it's one of the most fundamental things that you preach and talk about. So could you repeat that?
Yes. As I was saying earlier, your highest value is what you know, not what you do. You value your time because that's where you've spent your time, energy, effort, is learning the tactical pieces, the compliance and the technical skills. However, your clients value you because of what you know. When you charge for your time, you're going to almost always be leaving money on the table. I can guarantee that. I know so many bookkeepers who are charging $75 an hour and they think they're making great money. And then I am able to really help them really price it out so they're really averaging more like $225 an hour. But that's because we're then able to bundle or package their services together to be able to separate what they're doing from how much time it's taking and getting paid for their time. Jonathan, I believe that charging an hourly rate is like renting out your soul. That's really how I look at an hourly rate.
And it's,
Is you're selling your soul, you're playing with the devil, for lack of a better word of looking at this. And that is not your highest value from your client's point of view. We want to correct that and have you lead with your expertise, your knowledge, be seen as a trusted advisor and an authority.
absolutely. Yeah,
And then you really make so much more money without working additional hours. And I love doing that with my clients. So this is some of the things to look at is at this point, they've already done a diagnostic with you. They've already done the cleanup with you, and you're ready to roll them into a monthly package. With that, you want to recognize, okay, they've invested time with you. They now have trust and respect for your work. They don't want to go and start with somebody new. They're more likely to continue moving forward with you. You've earned the right to roll them into a monthly package. Because you fixed their books, once again, there's this element of trust. People actually value trust, that you can promise on what you say that you're going to do, and rapport, the customer service experience. They value those things more than your hourly rate. As you were mentioning, especially with attorneys are busy people, and they are money machines when their practices are working well. They want you to be able to just hand it off to you, know that you're going to give them the information they need when they need it. They can have access to that data because that there's an element of trust, and they're willing to pay for trust as opposed to going with the lowest competitive rate. That is the other thing to consider. And the next thing is, as you alluded to with the trusted advisor, your diagnostic review right from the get-go sets you up as an authority. It really shows them that you are a trusted advisor instead of simply a technician, because you are making recommendations that help their practice become more profitable right from the very beginning. You want to continue that into the monthly work, do some type of advisory work, not just the technical work, because that is a big component of value pricing. Now, there's a lot of bookkeepers that don't really see themselves as advisors, especially advisors to attorneys. And that's one of the things that I show my clients how to do, is how to bring the advisory piece into what they do in order to really separate their fees from time and do value pricing. I just want to quickly go into how this worked with one of my clients. She had a new client come to her towards the end of March, right after the lockdown. This was an attorney. Now, if she would have gone through her original process of enrolling attorneys into working with her, she would have just done the cleanup work for free, because she wasn't charging for cleanup work. She was just enrolling them into a monthly recurring maintenance right from the beginning, and doing the cleanup as part of that monthly maintenance. So that's one place where she was leaving money on the table, and it had a lot to do, once again, with her confidence. She didn't like having the sales part of it or the enrolling part of it. It was uncomfortable. She had some self-esteem issues, and it affected how she set up the processes in her business. So she gave away the cleanup because she saw it, as many people here did, as a loss leader. She was going to make money on the back end when she turned them into a monthly client. But we went through the cleanup process that I teach, and she put that into her practice. So she had this client come to her to do a cleanup late in the end of March. Because she was using my process, she enrolled them into a cleanup project where she wouldn't have charged anything, and she was able to charge them $5,000 for the cleanup project. Once again, she would have done it for free. She now made $5,000 on doing the cleanup work, because she was able to slow down her process as she was doing the cleanup job. She was able to also see what package they really needed moving forward. She realized that this client was going to be a diamond level client, because I teach my clients to offer 3 options or 3 packages as you're moving forward. She had the conversation with them after the cleanup project was done about next steps moving into monthly. She talked about her 3 packages. She knew that they were going to be the highest level client, a diamond client, which means she enrolled them into doing, it was a $40,000 a year gig that she enrolled them into. They said yes. And she had them, they paid her upfront for the gig for the whole year's worth of service before she started the work, because she was able to show them the value. And by slowing it down her process, they saw her value moving forward. They had the trust to hire her for this $40,000 maintenance fee moving forward. So that's what's possible once you get this cleanup process in place and you slow down by doing the diagnostic, doing the cleanup process where you see what they need moving forward, not just what they need now, but what they need next, and then enrolling them into a package of working with you that is based on the value of your work as opposed to how much time it takes.
I have one little note to add on the diagnostic and as a function of the cleanup, what's a certain value that is to law firms specifically. And Aaron had mentioned that this law firm had bad trust accounting. And so remember, one of the value adds is a properly reconciled trust account. And that value translates into compliance with their bar association and potentially mitigating risk of losing their license. When a trust account is poorly managed, it's not just a financial consideration in terms of the money, it is a practice consideration. Is that lawyer able to practice because they're mishandling trust, and they have to be prepared to receive an audit. So just know that when you do that for law firms in particular, your value is not just the fiduciary oversight of the money, but the value can also be their compliance, and you can integrate that. All right, Lauren, we're surprisingly running out of time. I want to just leave a little time for things, but I have one last question is if you could answer it very quickly, which is, you mentioned that this system lets you cherry pick your clients. Just how does that work? I think we talked about it, but let's just review that one last point.
Real quickly, the diagnostic review, first of all, filters out price-sensitive clients. If they're not going to pay for a diagnostic review, they're price-sensitive, just bless them and let them move on. With the onboarding system, you actually get to screen clients before they move into a monthly maintenance package. If there's any red flags or you found that they were difficult to work with, then you don't have to move them into a monthly maintenance package. You can just do the cleanup project and let them move on at that point. Basically, you get a chance to work with a client before they become long-term. And this is a benefit to you because then you don't end up with those headache clients that you wish would go away and you just don't know how to fire. It keeps you from having to do that. The other thing is that with this process, each step in the process is value priced, which means you make more money without working additional hours. Like I said, I want to turn your business, especially your cleanup process, into your personal ATM machine. And this is the way to do it. Plus, when you have clients who are paying you for value as opposed to you being the cheapest person around there, you end up with better clients who are more likely to follow through with what you say. They respect you and they follow through with your recommendations. So it's a win-win-win all the way through.
Yeah, and I find that like if clients are hemming and hawing on the LeanLaw side about our price, they tend to be bad clients because they don't value what the software does for their practice. And I think the same is truthful for this same. I think the same is true here in the sense that if someone looks at, if you're properly communicating your value in the process and someone doesn't and thinks it's expensive and doesn't pay for it, most likely they would have been a bad client. Okay, I want to wrap. I sent a link out. If you're wanting to be part of the LeanLaw community, we have something called the LeanLaw Accounting Pros Program. I sent out a link for that. That's going to be evolving and changing. The 3 tenets of our program is community, we're all here together, education, you can see Lauren doing these webinars, and then collaboration, helping to service and win new law firms. I also mentioned that we're having, this is the first of a 3-part series with Lauren, and I have the names of in my notes. The next one will be September 16th. It's titled Increase Your Value, How to Create Irresistible Packages. We will have a third one, November 12th, 3 Ways to Stop Attracting the Wrong Clients to Your Business. So that is the 3-part series. We'd love for everyone to participate. And so it is on the hour, Lauren.
I'd love to just let them know how to get in touch with me.
Yeah. What can they do next? Thank you. I'm sorry, I forgot that.
That's okay. We are so enthusiastic about the topic. If this is something that resonates with you, you can really see how this will increase your profitability without having to be a slave to your business. Then I'm offering a complimentary path to profit strategy session where we look at where you want to go in your business, where you currently are, some of the obstacles, some of the opportunities. If it's looks like a fit for working together, then I talk about how we can work more closely together too. So if you are interested in that, I put aside 3 Path to Profit strategy sessions for the people listening here, Jonathan, and they can go to businesssuccesssolution.com/let's talk. It is in the chat, the link. So it's businesssuccesssolution.com/let's talk. And that lets you get started with a path to profit strategy session, because I want to show you how to turn your business into your personal ATM machine.
Hey, does Steve have that? Steve, do you have that link for the group that you can chat that out?
I believe I put it there, but I'll go ahead and just say it one more time.
It's up there. We'll put it up one more time.
Yep, there it is right there.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's there. So, and I will tell you from my vantage point, those that have engaged with Lauren in her coaching have had great success in transforming their practices. So I encourage you to engage in her community and take advantage of not only the offerings that she does in a non-paid version, but also consider engaging her as a coach. Lauren, we're 12:01. Steve, thank you for the online chat organization. That was really awesome. And Lauren, as always, thank you for your collaboration, your insight, and participation with these webinars. So I'm going to end the webinar now and say thank you to you all for attending today. I wish you all to be safe and have a great day.